Hi, I'm Candice James from Silver Bowl Publishing, and today I'm going to be having a bit of a conversation with Christopher Levenson, but mostly he's going to be reading from his latest new book of poetry, and it is called Small Talk. And it's a very excellent book, so everybody should go out and buy it. And you'll know that once you hear him start reading from it. So I'm going to let him introduce himself to you. That's a little bit warmer. And then he'll go from there into reading from his book. When he's done, then we'll go back and have a few questions. Here you go, Chris.
Okay, my name's Christopher Levenson. I have published this is my 13th book of poetry. Apart from writing poetry, of course, I taught English and the poetry workshop at Carleton University in Ottawa for many years, 29 years, and retired to Vancouver in 2007, and I've been fairly active in the literary scene here. I guess that's all I want to say at the moment. So I'll just go straight into reading some of the poems from Small Talk, and I'll start off with one called Lion. Heraldry got it all wrong. They are not rampant and noble. Most of the time, they're just layabouts, sunning on rocks, complacent and chauvinist. But it shows what a good coiffure and a deep voice can do for your self-esteem. That, plus a bit of land to spray and call your own and defend as long as you can, till someone with a louder voice, younger body, stronger teeth, drives you away into the veldt alone. There's a number of animal poems, poems about animals in this first section. Another one that I'd like to read is called Squirrel. High wire Baryshnikov. You pirouette between trees, dancing on air, creating in our backyard new alphabets of space, all flourish and curlicue, calligraphies of fur. What I'm trying to do, of course, is get away from just the standard pretty animals. Got one here called Giant Sloth. Easy does it, I say, one step at a time. In any case, to me, the world makes more sense upside down. I believe in taking my time, mostly my night time. Live and let live, that's my philosophy. And another poem that is not, well, it's about a snowy owl, but it's called Surprise. And this is a true event. A perfect specimen, he thought, the wildlife biologist, stuffing a snowy owl into the lab freezer overnight for safekeeping, along with some smaller rodents and fish. When he returned next day, the owl stared at him, wide-eyed, having feasted long and well on the more authentic dead. And this is one of the few that I remember. These are all short poems, they're all between 2 and 10 lines. This one is called Call Waiting. From the further shore, it emerges through the mist. And I want to say to the loon, your call is important to us. There are some of these poems that are not about nature specifically, but about childhood memories, of course. And this one's called The Sea Spring. I grew up in England, as you can probably tell, and during the war I was evacuated to Lancaster, and we used to make occasional visits to a place called Silverdale and stayed there sometimes in the summer. And this is something that I observed there, the sea spring. Even the salt of the sea can be overcome. As a wartime child in Morecambe Bay, I had seen the salt flats at Silverdale, stinging desolate creeks, tough islands of marsh grass, thrift and rotting bones, overwhelmed twice a day in the relentless battleship grey of the estuary tide. 100 yards out from the pebble shore it was, a spring where we drew fresh water. Though at high tide it was gone, only an hour was needed to rinse it clean, and the cold source would resume its clarity. One final, well, it's nature, I suppose, in a way. It's called Ecology, but it's really about love. And I got the idea of this from the last line, the description of Texas oil, sweet, light, crude. Ecology. Unlike oil, natural gas, or the Amazon forest, love is a renewable resource. Drill deep enough and you'll find it still welling up from the bed of the ocean or flaring across prairie landscapes. Sweet, light, crude, whatever. At the party, like icebergs, we stand around, brilliant, but mostly submerged. No one approaches. And then to end this sort of second section, chameleon. And now this is not an animal poem, it's myself as chameleon. At the time I had just had a knee operation and I was walking with a stick. Twice in the center of Amsterdam, strangers have stopped me to ask for directions. Maybe after more than 50 years, I am finally blending in here, and my cane makes me look like a heritage site or a building that must be torn down for the sake of the usual progress. Translated, I am more than content to pass for one of the locals. Moving on then to the more socio-political, if you like, poems. This one's called Nutrition, and it's for a man who used to be my favorite bookseller in Ottawa, David Dawkin. After victory, Aztec warriors would devour the hearts of brave slain enemies to partake of their courage. So I, like a cannibal, in a second-hand bookstore, grab at my late colleagues' relics, trepan the skulls, bend back the spines, scoop up a dozen books, hope to acquire some part of the brain, a hint of the intellect they went to feed.
Just interjecting quickly here, I must say, this is really a great book, Christopher, and some of the poems are just so wonderful, like Icebergs is terrific, and same with Camellia. They're just fantastic. So I really have high hopes for this book, as I'm sure you do. And
thank you. Oh, I should update you on something. The review by Al Rempel, you know Al Rempel?
Yes, I got an email from Richard Mackey.
Oh, did you? Okay,
yeah,
good.
Yeah, he sent me that, and apparently he sent me 2 links, and I haven't yet got into them. I was just ready to get into them, and then I remembered I got to get this thing up here, so I came right
Yes.
over here.
Yeah, well, it's a sort of rave. I mean, he does make one or two critical comments, as they're just minor things. So basically, it's very, very favorable. Newsreel. In the news clip from Liberia, the naked running boy, when shot, did not get up, but lay in the dust quite still. This was no stunt. In the film of his life, he was not simply an extra. He played the title role. And part of the point, I suppose, of these shorter poems is that they usually just observe one thing, and hopefully some of those things are things that also strike the reader, maybe for the first time. And if I've drawn attention to that, then I'm happy the poem's done its work. Skyscraper. The skyscraper office block's sheer effrontery has one redeeming virtue. Its glossy sides reflect oaks in the nearby park, cloud transients, a veering gull, contact prints of details that otherwise I would have forgotten to see. And I've traveled a fair bit. One of the places I like going to about 2 or 3 times, never for long enough, is Mexico City. But it like so many places in the world, it's a city of great contrasts. This one's simply called Mexico City. Mexico City. In the Zona Rosa, the dark-tinted glass of the latest office high-rise reflects back upon crowded pavements. Beside the airport freeway, monstrous billboards compete with the blue of jacarandas that floats over the neighborhood corner stores, auto workshops, like a pale dream of wealth and liberty. Okay, I'll read 2 more. Return. In the refugee camp after the Nakba, his mother and father were both constantly knitting fishing nets. When he asked them why, they told him, "The day you return to Tiberias, our old village, this way you'll have everything ready to start afresh." His parents, now buried in all but memory, assured him the deeds to their house by the shore were valid still and merely await his return. Finally, on a fairly grim note, in three-piece suits. In three-piece suits and finely honed smiles, the diplomats settled their border disputes. Long before the stockyards come in sight, cattle herded in wagons smell their death.
Very, very, very nice, Christopher. Very nice. Now, I have a few questions to ask. And actually, just before I ask them, for anybody that may tune me out later, I just want to let everyone know that your book is available worldwide at retail bookstores and libraries through Ingram Spark catalog, the iPage catalog. So if it's not in stock, they can order it in for anybody, anywhere in the world, which I like because we've actually had some orders come in from Romania, and we've had some from Australia. Yeah, it's just amazing. Now I'm going to ask some questions. Okay, Christopher, a question I have is, what made you decide on a book solely of short poems?
I think mainly it was because I hadn't had a book for 5 years. I wanted to prove that I was still writing. And I also wanted to get attention for a number of short poems that tend to get overlooked in reviews. I mean, mostly if you're reviewing a book of poetry, you concentrate on, say, 4 or 5 or 6 of the more obviously quote unquote important ones, and the shorter poems get left aside for the most part. And then also there were some that I thought, well, you know, these have a little sort of sting in them, or they're funny, or they make an observation that I think would be worth recording. And of course, I really got the idea initially from our late BC poet, whom I knew slightly, P.K. Page, and she published an anthology of very short poems called To Say the Least. I think this is probably about 15 or 20 years ago now. And that was partly what got me thinking that, you know, these poems were by a variety of people, but why couldn't I do one just of my own poems? So that's really the reason that came about.
Yeah, and the thing is too, is when you go into a doctor's office or a dentist, or there's always stuff there to read, and people would never normally read a poetry book, but a book of short poems should be in every waiting room office because it's just so nice and light and easy, and yet has meaning. I think that it would be perfect. I don't know why. There must be a way to get them into doctors' offices and stuff like that, but I'll have to research that going forward. And the next question I have is, what advantage can a short poem have over a longer one?
The advantage partly is it can be memorable. Partly it will give you maybe 1 or at most 2 images, and they will perhaps stay in your mind more clearly than with even something as relatively short as a sonnet.
The next question, why did you divide up the book the way you did? What went through your mind? How did you say, okay, I'm going to put this here and that, and I'm going to start with this, put that, and end with this?
Yes, I like books that are divided up. In the same way, I mean, I have read books that have absolutely no chapters in them, and you have to read right through the beginning, from the beginning to the end. But I guess I have a sort of quasi-bureaucratic mind in a way. I mean, I like putting things into compartments, but it's very arbitrary, and I realized this as I was doing it. It's just perhaps that I don't want the book to seem sort of overwhelming. And I want to give people a sense that, yes, there are some common threads between some of the poems.
Yeah, short poems, short and sweet, and yet your short poems really pack a punch. They're great. They really are. So my last question is, why that title? Why did you choose the title Small Talk?
Well, I chose it actually because I thought it was misleading. That's to say, especially with the particular cover that it has, it will suggest that this is just chit chat, you know, on a very superficial level. And perhaps people who wanted something on a very superficial level will be beguiled into reading it and then find things that maybe pull them up short and surprise them.
Well, I will say the actual image is a great image, and even if you weren't really interested in looking at the book, that image would make you pick it up anyway, because you see these 2 lovely looking ladies in their senior years, and it looks like they're really having a great time, and you wonder what they're talking about. So you would open it up. Great image, great front.
Thank you. Yes, that's thanks to my wife who took part in a Vancouver City art photo project, and she was photographed with her friend there, and it was sort of set up, but it really works well, I think.
Oh, it's a
Yeah.
great photo. Now,
Yeah.
do you have anything else you'd like to say before we sign off? Anything upcoming or anything at all?
I don't think so. I just hope perhaps, yes, this would be a good note to end on. I hope perhaps if people find themselves interested in and their attention caught by short poems, that they might look at other long poems, not just mine, but other people's longer poems, not really long, but regular length. So if this is a way in for people, I'd be very happy.
Yeah, and it just amazes me that poetry isn't selling more than novels. I mean, it's much better than novels are great, but then they turn into movies. Poetry doesn't turn into movies. Poetry you get to keep in your mind and open the book wherever you want. I just can't believe that poetry is not a great seller, at least equaling novels, if not surpassing them. But